Okay, yes, but I don't have the material yet.
Oh yes, we are sending it to you. Should be on its way.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-operated facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting, as long as they are distanced 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we are requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. Okay, I would like to introduce the members of the panel today. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the panel. With me today in the boardroom are Mr. Doug Marks and Mr. Brent McIntyre. The secretary today is Ms. Belen Rojo. The assessor joining us via Zoom is Mr. Matthew Baracus. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, instructions on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish, and once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record, and use of cell phones is not permitted except by the approval of the chair. The first matter we will be hearing today is 65 South Park Drive. So, Mr. Baracus, please proceed when you are ready.
Okay.
Oh, you have to be sworn in first, sorry.
Okay.
All right, so please state your full name.
Matt Baracus.
And do you swear that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And Jarrett?
Yep.
Please state your full name.
Jarrett Story.
And do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, please proceed when you're ready.
All right, sounds good. File number 20-579, roll number 030930055545, 65 South Park Drive. Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corporation is the owner. Roll year 2019. April 1st, 16, reference date assessed value $3,600,000. $173,000. It's an apartment, one building, 3 stories. 85 is the actual and effective year built. We've got 33 suites, 33 outdoor parking spots, construction class D, water steel frame walls. This property, if you go to page 2, you'll see that there's no request for income information because it's there was a replot on this property done recently. This is a supplementary. What it was is there was about just over 500 square feet of land that went to city streets. So the PID changed. So there's no PID. There's no mailers that have been associated with this new PID. So that's why it doesn't show up on the list. But they have been compliant in regards to the old PID. So there's no need to request any penalties. So they're good in that respect. So the income value summary we have here on page 3 is as you typically see it. We've got a 5 3/4 cap rate with our model parameters, a 48.43% expense ratio to get our net operating income and our estimated market value at $3,073,000. So it's MHRC properties, so their rents aren't indicative of market rents. So analysis was done in that regard. You can see in the area on page 4, there's properties on South Park and Allegheny that are around the rent that is being assigned to the subject, and they include bachelor and 1-bedroom units. The subject is not. So comparable wise, it looks like we're good. And page 5, that's our cap rate table. You've gone over it many times, so I'm not going to touch on that. Page 7 is our examples of sales of properties that have happened. Actually, these are post-reference, so this is not applicable to this reference here. So disregard page 7 for this file. Okay, page 8. So I did some more rent research. What I did is I took a look at the CMHC figures in regards to this area for confirming that we weren't overstating the rents. I looked at the zone. I looked at the year of construction, and I looked at the total unit count information, and then I just came up with weighted averages. Averaged them out and calculated a gross potential over an entire year. So it looks like we're within $10,000 of what CMHC is saying. These 3 fields of research are showing combined what the rent would be on this property. So looks like our comps are in line. Our CMHC data is in line. So for that reason, I didn't make any change to the rent. Page 9, this property was actually heard before previously at the Board of Revision. I was the person who did it. It was confirmed based on the evidence that was presented, which is what you're looking at today. So again, more evidence for no change on this property because your colleagues at the Board of Revision have already heard financial information. And Altus was the applicant last time as well. Page 11 shows a permit in 2009 that was taken out to the tune of $237,000. Exterior alterations, including demolition of existing wood balconies and constructing wood balconies on all elevations. Just showing that they do work to these places. A lot of the times the applicants say that they don't do work as a kind of a carte blanche statement, but permits say otherwise. Here's another permit that's out on page 12 for $1.8 million. exterior alteration to the existing apartment building, removal and replacement of exterior finishes, windows, doors, and parking lot, sump pump, pit, waterproofing, mechanical and electrical. So they do work to Manitoba Housing to keep them up, and they have the money to do so from the government. So that's my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Okay, just very quickly to address the question of whether or not this has been heard before. I'll put this in my presentation. That's fine. It's not a question, but okay, let's start from the beginning. Have you visited this property?
I have not inspected any of the properties on the docket.
Okay, that's fine. Now, this is social housing, as we've established. It was built in 1985, and it's Class D construction. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we have on record.
Okay, so it's wood frame construction, so that would indicate a lower quality of construction in general for a property of this size?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Now, what's interesting here is you've got the suite mix. We'll talk about that after. But there's actually 18 two-bedroom suites and 15 three-bedroom suites. Would you say that's is that typical, or is that an atypical suite mix?
Well, usually there's some one bedrooms in apartments. So I would say maybe a little bit atypical in that regard.
Okay. And do you think that in general in the apartment universe in Winnipeg, it's slightly more difficult, or even largely more difficult to rent three-bedroom apartments versus, say, bachelors or one bedrooms?
I don't have any information in regards to that. I can't answer.
Okay. Have you looked at the CMHC stats on vacancy rates for 2, 3, and 4+ bedroom rentals?
Not in particular, no.
No. Okay. Now you've mentioned that there was a replot. Is there an easement on this property?
Ooh, I do not know. I wasn't involved with the replot, so I can't say. I'll look up in the notes. But I don't know.
And it's likely because the rapid transit corridor passes directly behind it. Are you aware of that?
Hang on, let me pull this up here.
I visited the property twice, and I saw it. I can tell you that there's
Well,
certainly a rapid transit corridor.
I'll take your review, yeah. I'll take your
Okay,
review.
so if there is a transit easement, would that affect the risk factor for an prudent potential investor?
I mean, a prudent potential investor would see that it's right near the University of Manitoba. In terms of like potential for student housing and transportation in and out of the city back to the residents, I actually think it's a bonus.
Okay, and it would actually have to be, if that were the case, to suppose it were to be converted to student housing, it would have to be redemised completely, right?
No, I don't think so.
You think that students would rent 3-bedroom apartments?
Well, a lot of the times they get roommates, they room together in order to keep the rent down because they don't have a lot of money.
There's a lot of student housing in Winnipeg. We don't typically see 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, do we?
I can't comment on that as well.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go to your page 3. And just to be very clear, when this property was last heard in 19, the replot had not occurred, so this is a different set of circumstances, just so we're all clear. Is that correct?
Financially, the numbers aren't any different. It's just that there's less land to the property.
But there was some change that, and then if you mentioned that the last appeal was confirmed, but with this replot, that would nullify any any appeal that would come to the municipal board, correct? This new roll number supersedes the old one, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so just so we're all aware. Now, all of your inputs here, are they modeled? Is that fair to?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the vacancy rate is modeled, the expense rate is modeled, and the cap rate, that's all modeled?
Yes.
Okay, and I noticed that the market value per suite has been omitted. Is there some reason for that?
I don't know why that's not there.
Okay, but it would, and so you're not familiar with the the interior of this property. You haven't visited it, but are you aware then that none of these have been renovated? They're original to 1985.
I haven't gone into it, so I can't say either way.
Okay. You mentioned that there were permits. Have you seen what this property looked like prior to the exterior work that they did on it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that's fine. All right, your rent comps, talk about those very quickly. Now, just so we're clear, our property, our subject, you have the gross floor area per unit at 1,135 square feet. Can you tell me where that number came from?
That's just the general gross floor area divided by the suite count. That would also include any sort of common areas. So it's not like a area specific to the suite. It would encompass common areas too. So that number and all the other numbers pertaining to the other comparables would be higher than what the average suite size.
Okay, interesting. So it's imputed, but it does include what we'll call common areas, interior corridors, things like that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and do all of these comparables have interior corridors?
You know, I haven't inspected these comparables, and I really put more weight on the CMHC analysis in regards to the rent. So I can't comment on the condition of comparables.
Okay. All right. So, but you did select these comparables yourself, did you not?
Yeah, I did. I picked them from a list.
Okay, perfect. So just to be very clear, rent comp 1, those are completely renovated. I've looked at interior photos of them. They also don't have any 3-bedroom units. They have a number of bachelor suites and 1-bedrooms as well. Are you aware of that?
That's what we have on the list. Again, I haven't inspected, so I can't say I'm aware of the condition.
Okay, so you picked it, I'm guessing, based on proximity as opposed to comparability. Is that fair to say?
Proximity, effective year built. Try to get 2 and 3 bedroom units into the
Okay.
area.
That's fine. Rent comp number 2, that's a garden style townhouse. So those all have private entrances. Again, no interior corridors. Were you aware of that?
No, again, I have never inspected these properties.
Okay,
so.
and just to be very clear, the 3, but this is, you don't have to inspect them. You can just research them. The 3-bedroom units in this property are 1,155 square feet. That's about 18% larger than our 3 bedrooms. In fact, their 2 bedrooms are closer to the size of our 3 bedrooms, but that's fine. And now on Allegheny 125, that's comp number 3. This property has 35 indoor parking stalls. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay, and the vacancy at the reference date, did you look into that at all?
No,
Almost
I didn't
7%.
I focused more on the CMHC calculations and
right. But these are the type of properties that would inform the CMHC. So the issue that comes up when we're looking at 3 bedrooms is that you're often looking at larger suites on 2 floors with catered amenities. So I just want to point that out. So rent comp number 4, that's a property called the Polo Club. You didn't look into that one, I'm guessing, as well?
No.
Okay, and just for the record, these have balconies, fireplaces, a pool, a gym, a billiards room, and a racquetball court. So with all these factors taken into consideration, does it then make sense that they would have just a slightly higher average monthly rent than what you've modeled here for our property? They would be higher if they had all those amenities, wouldn't they?
Well, it's a lot higher, and they have 1 bedroom, so that kind of pulls in the other direction. But it's still a good amount higher than our subject property. Okay.
Is it safe to say that these are all superior to our property?
I haven't inspected them, so I can't actually confirm everything you're saying.
Okay. Now, in terms of the cap rates, so when I received your brief, I only had this sheet on page 5, but that's fine. Okay. So I guess just as a general question about cap rates, I think the board has heard our both of our arguments on cap rates a number of times. But I guess my biggest question here is, does the city recognize, or does the city's model recognize that there should be some sort of upward adjustment based on appraisal theory to social and affordable housing? And does the model capture that reality of this property?
We don't agree that there should be an adjustment, so we don't make.
Okay, so the city doesn't agree with the Appraisal Institute.
We don't agree with what you're saying right now. I can't confirm that comes from the Appraisal Institute or not.
Okay, well, I'll put that into my presentation. That's fine. Now, you've got, this is interesting, page 6, you've got excerpts, section 53.2 and 53.3, but you've negated to include section 53.1. Is there some reason for that?
This is automatically generated brief,
Okay.
so I'm not in charge of what goes into this.
Oh, okay. But just so we're clear, 53.1 does say that the amount of assessed value, the burden of proof does fall on the city, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Now let's look at this. You're calling this the weighted average calculator. Can I ask you why you're calling it a weighted average calculator? These aren't weighted averages, are they?
Well, it's weighted by suites, count and composition.
No, that's an arithmetic mean. That's not
Okay.
that's not a weighted average. That's an average. It's not a weighted average, just so we're very clear.
Well, thank you for the correction.
Well, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same things here. Okay, I think that is those are my questions. Yeah, those. Oh, actually, just very quickly, you've included a permit here from 2009. Now that would be captured in the many years that's passed since then. So this is not terribly pertinent to what we're talking about. This is when they had the wood balconies that were falling apart and they had to build new ones. So I'm just wondering, you included this, it's from 2009, correct?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions?
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Sorry, Mr.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
Just one question. So the only difference in what generated the supplementary assessments is land that was either the city bought or expropriated?
Yeah, there was a replot whereby just over 500 square feet went to city streets. So they're based, like we value apartments on income. So the income parameters didn't change at all from the last go around when it was confirmed by 3 panel members at the Board of Revision.
That was my only question.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Story, please proceed.
Thank you very much. All right, so 65 South Park Drive. Once again, this is family social housing with a high proportion of 3-bedroom suites, 15 3-bedrooms, 18 2-bedrooms, 3 stories, built in 1985. There has been work done to the building envelope. It was in very poor condition, and that was remediated. So some of the work that was done in the parking lot, into the grounds, and then also to the envelope of the building. In 2009, there were wooden balconies. There were about 10 of them that were taken down and rebuilt. So the city is suggesting a value of $3,673,000. We're suggesting $2,850,000 is more appropriate. Again, we've pointed out that the suite mix is atypical of what we're seeing in the market, though when we do see a larger propensity of 3-bedroom suites, we see catered to generally a higher grade of asset than what we're looking at here today. I've confirmed with the owner that the interior has not been renovated, so it is true to its vintage. It's from 1985, and the interiors are they do reflect that. So there is parking associated with this property as well, and as we mentioned, it does back onto the transit corridor, which is why I suppose the replot has come to pass. So generally, we do accept the market rents put out by CMHC, but the issue here is that we looked at them, we reviewed them, we said no, these are far too high. We appealed this property in 2018. The value was substantially reduced, but it was still not in line with where we thought it ought to be. So we recommended to the owner that it be appealed further, and effectively they got back to us with an agreement past the deadline, which is why we appealed again in 2019. So we've sort of unduly punished this owner enough at this point. I think we should try and get this straight today, because as I've mentioned, this replot has negated our municipal board appeal. So it's not simply that it was heard and it's all been asked and answered. It's actually more complicated than that. So we've looked at the market. I've found 4 properties on Chancellor with 2-bedroom suites, but I've put a lot of weight on a property on Killarney, 33 Killarney. I've included photos as well so you can see it. It's a low-rise. It was renovated, and there's a rent increase in 2015. So I've put more weight on that, though my average comes to 904 in the reference year of or the 2015 as an average rent for the 2016 reference year. The average is 904 for a 2-bedroom, 1,034 for a 3-bedroom. We've recognized that there's been some exterior work done to this property to be certain, and just in the interest of fairness, we've skewed to the higher end and said, well, 955 for a 2-bedroom is reasonable, and 1,100 for a 3-bedroom is reasonable. So with those points taken into consideration, the potential gross income becomes 404,280 with a stabilized effective gross income at 392,960. Now we have accepted the vacancy rate, but I will suggest to you that according to the CMHC, vacancy rates for properties of 2 and 3 bedrooms in particular are much higher than the average citywide rate, though 2.83% is generally accepted across the board. That does include bachelors and 1-bedrooms. But for the sake of narrowing our interest, we have accepted the model parameter of 2.8%. In terms of the expenses, we've stabilized the expenses, and we estimate them to be 214,865, which gives us a ratio of 54.7, which includes a stabilized repair and maintenance expense of 1,522 per suite. So based on the above, we've determined that a stabilized NOI at April 1 of 16 is 178.95. And now the capitalization rate. Okay, so based on our study from the previous cycle, we would suggest that a low-rise built between 1960 and 1999 was our bracket in the last cycle, ought to be applied a cap rate of 5.75. Now, we do add a premium for social housing, which is in line with the Appraisal Institute, who states that when developing a market-derived cap rate for an income-restricted property, we begin with an analysis of the available rates for similar unrestricted properties, and then we adjust these rates based on the risk factors an investor would consider when developing a cap rate. So the risks that we're seeing here are there's no property-specific reserve fund, which is typical of nonprofit properties. This is considered budget housing, so there's no landlord. I should mention too, there's no air conditioning in this entire building. Excuse me, we have a low income tenancy, we have no economic profit, and we have deferred maintenance. So when the assessor mentioned that they do work on these properties, I'm going to suggest to you that very little work was done for 35 years, and then there was work done, and now who knows when those will be updated again. And all of the work, once again, I can't stress this enough, has been done to the exterior of the property, and it's maintenance work. It's not to create a more desirable property. It's capital expenditure that needed to be spent to keep the property afloat, so to speak. I've included a board order with a supplementary piece of information, and just very quickly, it's again, this is supported by the Appraisal Journal, which says that low investment grade apartments warrant a higher yield and overall rate than conventional apartment properties. The applicable rates tend to rise with the presence of each of the 4 characteristics attributable to these properties: low cost or low quality construction, advanced age, declining or blighted neighborhood, and low income tenancy. So once again, our methodology in developing a cap rate for social housing is to take the cap rates that we see in the market and then making an adjustment. Now for this scenario, we've adjusted by 50 basis points. So where we would typically use 5.75, we've used 6.25. So again, with all these points taken into consideration, we do suggest and respectfully submit that the value at the reference date not exceed $2,850,000. I've included photos in my appendices of my best comp. This is on Killarney. You can see it also has balconies, but it's also, I've got some interior photos, and you can see that it's also been renovated inside, not to a extremely high standard, but certainly beyond, well, the flooring at the very least is beyond what we would see from a property that's true to a 1985 vintage. I have some of the income statements that have been submitted, and then my workup in my, I believe that's my last page, page 26, probably 27 of your PDF. And it's very interesting. You look at the actual, if we were to use the actual numbers that were submitted, we would end up with a negative balance in terms of the net operating income every year. Clearly, we can't use that, so we do look to model a rent as though the property, in a theoretical sense, was operating in the free and open market, and then again adjusting our cap rate. So once again, we do suggest that the value not exceed $2,850,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barekis, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Yeah. I've got some rebuttal, first of all, on his cap rates, and just in regards to the thought process behind putting a premium on social housing. So if that can be provided to the applicant right now, it is under, I believe it says assessor rebuttal. It's the non-numbered one. You open it, it should say Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corporation 3-year action plan on it. Just let me know when you have that open.
Okay, just bear with me for a minute. I have to find it. Okay, nope, that's 2 assessment taxing. Sorry, I'm trying to set park item. Okay, here we go, 3 items. Okay, I believe is it the Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corporation 3-year action plan?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, got it.
Okay, does everyone have that open?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have a copy of that.
It should be provided to you by the secretary at this time. Are you guys sending that over?
Yeah, I have sent it. I tried to send it again just to ensure it's received.
Sorry, Matt, what file am I looking at here?
The one that isn't numbered. It says the Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corporation 3-year action plan. It's got a blue.
Okay, yeah, got it here. Yep.
Okay, so I pulled this off of the computer, and it just gives you some perspective in regards to what's been going on in regards to modernization and improvement in Manitoba housing over the past few years. If you turn to the second page, I've got some highlighted portions. The first paragraph reads, between 2009 and 16, MHRC undertook significant programming expansion, which included increasing Manitoba community housing universe by 2,158 units. During this time, it's highlighted, Manitoba Housing also undertook large-scale repair and renovation of existing social housing stock, spending over $523 million on modernization and improvement. So they spent over $500 million basically between 2009 and 2016. So they do spend money. Now, while there's not a property-specific reserve fund, there is access to money from the government quite clearly. And they are beginning to take care of some of the historical deferred maintenance that's been occurring. If you turn to the second page, it says page 3 actually on the bottom. And I'll talk about some of that deferred maintenance there. The highlighted paragraph just before the highlighted, which is condition of existing community housing stock. The majority of Manitoba's social and affordable housing units built prior to 1985 and has reached a point where substantial investment is required to maintain the integrity of the stock. The aging condition, outdated design, low levels of public investment by all levels of government have resulted in a significant need for modernization and repair. So there are cases, and Manitoba Housing does recognize, like along with what Jarrett's saying today too, that there are cases where there is deferred maintenance for sure. So in the paragraph following, the housing relies on ongoing capital plan, modernization and improvement of the provincially owned social housing portfolio. In recent years, Manitoba Housing has significantly shifted its focus towards modernization and improvement, investing in capital upgrades to an aging housing portfolio to extend the useful life of its assets. And the last line here, underlined, much of the modernization and improvement is preventative in nature. So, and you can see that with an over $500 million investment since 2009, that they are recognizing that the housing stock does need help, and they're pumping in a ton of money to do so. So the contention that there's no reserve fund for these properties just isn't true, because they put $500 million in the province. The money's there, and it's recognized, and they're putting it in. And this article, it does recognize that there was historical deferred maintenance based on low levels of public investment in the past, but they're putting a ton of money in. Now, if you turn the page to page 4, what it is I took a look at the annual reports leading up to our reference dates here, and the 2014-2015 one, they didn't have the expenditure broken down, so I wasn't able to include that. So the activities highlights, and the highlighted part, asset management is committed to improving the quality of social housing portfolio and contributing to community revitalization efforts, continue to deliver one of the largest capital commitments in history of the social housing program in Manitoba. 4 areas were identified: deep refresh, exterior retrofit, interior refresh, common area programs. improving quality of life, preserving and enhancing buildings, creating employment, and contributing to community revitalization. If you turn the page to page 5, it shows that in 2015-16, highlighted, they spent $71 million in Winnipeg, just allocated to modernization and improvement. If you turn to page 6, at the bottom highlighted, this is from the 2016-17 report, says the modernization improvement program includes site improvement, exterior retrofits such as roofs, windows, siding, crawl space, basement, attic. This is all capital stuff. Refurbishment of interior units, common areas, mechanical, electrical system upgrades, so on. Page 7 shows $38 million they put in Winnipeg in 16-17. And page 10, 17-18 shows they put 27 in. So the contention that housing is not improving and addressing deferred maintenance on the properties, and there's no money to do so, just simply isn't the fact based on what they're reporting and what their verbiage is in regards to how there's been a huge, over $500 million investment in towards capital expenditure. So the money is there, and in a lot of private properties, the money's not there. They can't get the loan. They can't ask the government for money. So I really strongly feel, based on housing's own language and the permits that I've showing that it's specific to this property, they are doing capital investment, and you can tell by the picture that Jared included on the exterior, like they're doing work to properties. And now I didn't inspect the inside, but this sure looks like one of the places. So that's my rebuttal in terms of the cap premium.
Okay, well, we were actually on, did you have any questions for Mr. Story about his any other question? You gave your rebuttal, but did you have any questions about his presentation at this time?
Doesn't he? Okay, you want to go questions now? All right.
Well,
Can I speak to the rebuttal?
Right, but nobody had the opportunity to ask you questions about your presentation. Sure. So we'll get to the rebuttal.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good.
That was where we were at.
Okay.
We got a little out of order, so that's.
Oh, okay. So my question would be: are you aware of any sort of capital expenditures that have been applied to this property by MHRC?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. So there was substantial water damage to the exterior of this property that needed to be remediated. Now, again, this is a property built in 1985. I will suggest to you that funds for properties like this come about, well, in this case, once every 35 years or so. So yes, they did work on the exterior. The interiors have not been touched, and there's no air conditioning in this property. This is a majority 3-bedroom, 2 and 3. Well, it's all 2 and 3 bedroom suites, and there's no air conditioning in it. The maintenance that they did on the exterior was to keep the building standing, not to improve it or to make it more desirable for a second life as a private asset. So I can speak to this rebuttal that you've provided, but I think, quite frankly, I think you're making my point here. There's substantial deferred maintenance, and every once in a while there's money to try and curb it. But in the case of our subject, they had to spend $1.8 million on the exterior alone to keep the building standing. So I don't think that if I'm a prudent investor, if I'm looking at a property such as this, that gives me much confidence. I think that the fact that there is no reserve fund, as there is traditionally in a private apartment, there is no economic profit. That's why we end up with 35 years of deferred maintenance. So yes, they worked on the exterior, to answer your question.
Okay. Did you inspect the property before it was renovated?
No, we're in the middle of COVID. We can't go into apartments, but I did go outside. I've been there twice. I checked your comps. I just did a windshield sort of inspection. I drove by. I've checked them online. I've checked the files for info that was submitted for each of your comps. And I've also interviewed the owner.
I know, I mean, like before the exterior renovations, did you inspect it?
No, this predates my my time. That was a couple of years ago. But I did see you can do a quick Google search and see what the shape that this property was in. It's pretty simple.
Okay. And we are valuing this as a private for-profit.
Yeah. So the purpose of this exercise is to it's theoretical in nature, where we're going to take a purpose-built family housing social asset, and we're going to imagine how it might perform on the free and open market. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let me see. Do you know if they're doing any work to the inside of this property currently?
There are no plans to it. There's one. There's an issue on the lower level with water damage that I'm aware of, but no plans to renovate the interiors.
Okay. And then you included on page 15, you included a municipal board.
Right.
Order, it looks like.
Yep.
And that property, that's from 2002, right?
That's correct, but it cites, and I put this in my presentation, but it does cite low income grade properties, and it shows that the municipal board, the appraisal institute, basically everybody who's an authority on this recognizes that properties that are social housing ought to be applied a premium to a standard market derived cap rate. So I've included that because it has an excerpt from the appraisal journal that says, I can read it again to you. Low investment grade apartments warrant a higher yield and overall rate than conventional apartment properties. The applicable rates tend to rise with the presence of each of the four characteristics attributable to these properties: low cost or low quality construction, advanced age, declined or blighted neighborhood, and low income tenancy. So this property certainly meets at least three of those four criteria.
Okay, so where was the property on this for 2002? What property was this in regards to?
Okay. Sorry, what is the relevance of where the property is? We're citing an order, we're not using the property as a comparable. We're talking about that's not
the question I asked you. That's not for you to
answer. But I don't know why you're asking me where this property is. I'm not sure. That's not the issue at hand here. The issue is that they are citing this as a precedent that talks about low income grade properties. We're not using this as a comparable.
Okay.
No. We this is important.
What was your question? Repeat your question, please.
So, do you know where the property on the site-specific basis, where they were indicating that there should have been a higher cap rate? Do you know where that is? Do you know where that property is?
I don't know. As I've mentioned again, I don't know where the property is. I can look it up right now, if provided the roll number hasn't changed. But the point is not that we're not using these as comparables. We're using the precedent that is set in this case that talks about low income
Mr.
properties.
Story, the question was if you know where.
I do not know where the property is.
Yes or no?
No, I don't. And I don't think it's material.
Okay. So then that was the answer. You don't know. Okay.
So are you aware, so you're not aware that the property is located on Lake Street, also known as Blake Gardens, near the railway tracks? in a
No,
completely.
I think we've established that I'm not using this property as a
Mr. Story
comparable.
said he didn't know where it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that Blake Gardens, which is looking at the map here, like Notre Dame, just north of Notre Dame and Logan, would you say that's a comparable area to our subject property near the University of Manitoba?
That's no, and that's not what we're talking about. We've talked about the 4 issues. Now, that would be considered, I don't know that property, but I'm going to assume that you're suggesting that that's a blighted neighborhood. So maybe that meets 4 of the 4. That doesn't mean that every other social housing project in the city of Winnipeg ought not to be applied an adjustment to the cap rate. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so in regards to what you said here, just scrolling through your quote here from the Appraisal Institute. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the 4. It's harder when you have a computer. You got to scroll. Okay, here. So it says it said low grade investment apartments. It didn't actually cite public housing in particular in that blurb, did it?
Do you think that this is an investment grade property? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's not the question that I asked you.
Just answer the question, please, Mr. Story.
I'm not sure I understand the question. What are you asking? Do they say social housing? No, but I think a right-minded person could infer that low investment grade and social housing would be interchangeable in this scenario, to be certain. And they are talking about social housing in this case, are they not?
Yeah, they're talking about Blake Gardens. They're talking about,
and that's social housing, right?
Would
this order relates to social housing. So this is about social housing. This is precedent.
Okay, I'm going to stop you guys right. I think we have established what property they're talking about. We've established that it's social housing in this situation. Let's, just in the interest of time, because it's
sure.
We are almost at 10 o'clock and we are still on the first matter. So can we move on from that? From the semantics of the wording of social housing on this and
So those 4 bullets: low cost, low quality construction, advanced age. Do you consider 1980s property advanced age?
Well, I think that it's 1985, so that's 35 years, and clearly the maintenance has been deferred. So when we're talking about an asset that's depreciating, clearly the age would be advancing at a more rapid rate than had there been appropriate capital expenditure during the effective life. It's probably about halfway through its useful effective life, I would suggest. So no, it's not advanced. It's not 100 years old, but it's not a new property either. And it's low quality construction that needed a great deal of capital investment to maintain it. So. Mm-hmm.
Would you say Chancellor is a declining or blighted neighborhood?
No, I think we've established this. I'm not saying that it's a blighted neighborhood. Nobody's suggesting that it's a blighted neighborhood. I'm saying that it's low quality construction, low cost construction. Clearly, the effective age of the property, it clearly needed $1.8 million to fix the envelope. And it has a low income tenancy. So if you're suggesting that this property doesn't check those boxes, I'm just going to have to disagree with you.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see here. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've gotten a little off track with how this hearing is running. So I'm going to go to Mr. Marks. Did you have any questions for Mr. Story from his presentation? Sorry.
Sorry, no questions, Marla. Thank you.
No question. Okay, sorry. Mr. McIntyre, did you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one comment. The address for that municipal board order is contained on page 2 of the order.
Oh, right.
Just for information.
Yeah, perfect. I was looking at the roll number.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. I think that will clear up. Okay, so no further questions. I had no questions on that.
One more.
And then I guess, so the assessor has made his presentation on his rebuttal. So I guess, Mr. Story, did you have rebuttal evidence as well?
No, I think we've.
Sorry, not rebuttal. I mean, I think he's pretty much.
Well, no, I think this. First of all, this Manitoba Housing 3-year action plan is post-reference, but that's fine. We've talked about it a fair bit here, but I think that the takeaway from it is that there's deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed, and I don't think that. I think that this actually makes my point. So no, I'm fine with questions on that. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make one note. Okay, Mr. Marks, did you have questions for the assessor?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have one question for Mr. Story.
Yes.
Sorry, on page 2 of your brief, it's an aerial photo of the subject property.
Yeah.
So is the blue outline just that property, or does Manitoba Housing own the one next door?
No, I think the one next door, I don't know. No, it's the parcel that we're dealing with is the blue outline. So the that immediate rectangle that the subject is contained within, that is the parcel that we're dealing with today. I don't know if they own the property, the adjacent property, but it's certainly on a different roll. So I don't believe that they do, but I don't know. I think it actually is the parking lot for a property next door, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I think, but I'd be speculating.
Evidence was given that there's 33 parking stalls associated with this property, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, within the lines of those blues, there's not 33 parking spaces.
Well, no, I think there might be, because there would be parking on both sides, right? So it wouldn't just be on the one. And if you had the adjacent parcel, that would be far more than 33. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think that if you see, there's sort of on the overhead, there are trees there, and you can see if you look at the uppermost part that there is parking on both sides. So I think that would make sense. We're not contesting the amount of parking.
Okay, and it kind of leads to my last question is, given this aerial photo, when was it taken?
That's a good question. That's on the, check a reference on it. Sorry. So we're using this is the PP&D aerial map. I just want to make sure that it gives me a reference. Okay.
And the only reason I'm going,
sorry.
Given the fact that we heard a portion of the property was expropriated, I can't see where it would be expropriated.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What I can tell you though is on the left-hand side. So just to be clear though, that reference date on the PP&D aerial photography map is November 29 of 2019. The parking lot that you're referencing does indeed, the second parking lot that we're looking at, that belongs to a neighboring apartment building. And I believe that the expropriation likely happened at the, what we'll call the top, somewhere in the top left corner, because that is where the rapid transit corridor, that's where that goes now. So I would assume that that's what happened.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
So sorry, just to follow up. So is that when you say the top left corner, kind of where it comes to like a triangle?
Yeah, that's right. That's where I'll assume that, because if you look, there's sort of a yellow kind of school bus looking
Yes.
vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is effectively where the current rapid transit corridor runs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much. Is there a need for summary on this?
I think we've said it all. I think I'm
You
good.
said it all.
All right. So I think we're going to take a short recess at this point.
Sure.
Okay.
How about 5 minutes, everyone? Is that like give
Yeah.
everyone enough time to do what they need to do?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Ellen? Okay, perfect. See you shortly. All right, I will call this meeting back to order. The next matter on the docket is 65 South Park Drive for the 2020 assessment.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Thank you. File 20-480, roll number 0309 300 5545. Address 65 South Park. It's the same property. It's just the next reference here for April 1st, 2018, 2021, 20 and 21 are the roll years. Physical details we have are the same. You heard them last time, so I'm trying to speed things up a bit here. On page 3, you see our workup. 5.5 cap on page 4. We have our rent comparables. Again, they're from the area, and I have not inspected them or taken a close look at them. But in terms of the 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units, they're highly, well, they each have 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units other than comparable number 4. The majority of my rent analysis, however, was on page 8, where I did the same thing, the CMHC calculations. I went through and populated the tables and came out with looking at the zone, the year, and the building count, the rent that CMHC would have calculated using these 3 parameters and comparing it to the model rent. We're within $600 of each other, so it looks like we're not overstating the potential rent. The expenses were modeled on this one as well. This one, again, it was the last time around, it was heard on page 9 at the Board of Revision. It wasn't Altus, it was Stevenson last time. And it went from 4,377,000 to 3,979,000. And it was based on our net operating income and a 5.5 cap rate. So that's what we have on file. That's what I'm asking for today. Again, the permits, page 11 shows the same permits we talked about last time, so I won't go over them in detail. The only real difference from the last presentation is on page 7, when we have our comparables, or cap rate comparables that are not meant to be property specific. And they show that there are cap rates in the city that do range below 5%. They're included because essentially sub 5 caps are new in front of the panel this year. And we wanted to provide some actual site specific examples. We don't have any workups for them, but it is based on stabilized actuals. So for the purpose of speeding things up, that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yeah, just very quickly. Thank you. Okay. So we've talked about this property. We've agreed that it's social housing, purpose built, 1985, and Class D, low cost, low quality construction. Now again, we've talked about the suite mix. I don't know where the city got the 17 two bedrooms and 16 three bedrooms. It's 18 two bedrooms and 15 three bedrooms. Now, if that were corrected, would that affect the resulting value?
Sorry, say that again. If the bedroom count was different?
Yeah, if you changed the suite, if you corrected the suite mix, if you took the one of those three bedrooms and put it onto the two bedrooms, that would actually affect the value, would it not?
It would bring the rent down a little bit, so it would affect the rent a little bit. That is correct.
Okay, fair enough. Now the expense rate has gone up and the cap rate has gone down, but this property, for all intents and purposes, in terms of an economic unit, has not really changed in the reference period. So this is all based on modeling. Is that correct?
Yes, it's based on modeling.
Okay. And the market value per suite, once again, has been omitted, but if you calculate it, it's over 120,000 per suite. Do you think that's high for this type of asset?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. All right. So the rent comps. Now, these are some of the comps that will be used to generate the modeled rent, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, because you've mentioned the CMHC, but that's a check on value that you've done, and that doesn't actually affect what the model outputs. Like you haven't. I'm gonna ask. Did you overwrite the outputted modeled rent that the model outputs for this property?
I didn't do any sort of overrides. No.
Okay. So again, just very quickly, I think some of these are the same comps, but I did notice again. So the first one on Allegheny, those are 2-floor townhouses. They have indoor parking spots. It had high vacancy, but you didn't look at these closely. You said, is that correct?
Well, I put more weight on the CMHC, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Are you aware that comps 1 and 2 are the same property?
Are they just sub addresses, or it looks like they have different PIDs?
Yeah, it's the same property though.
Okay,
that's fine. But it's interesting. So the model it has the average rent off by $2, but everything else is identical. Just want to point that out. Again, number 3 is the Polo Club. Just so we're very clear, this has catered amenities, balconies, fireplaces, a pool, a gym, a billiards room, and a racquetball court. So we're aware of that now based on what we've presented in the last file, correct?
Yeah, that's what you're telling me.
Okay. And then now just the last one. This is a new one. Now this is particularly interesting. This is Silverview Estates. Are you aware of that?
I just looked at the parameters. I didn't have time to do a deeper analysis.
So, okay. But what's interesting about that one in terms of the rents, that's a private seniors, or 55 plus. Yeah. And included. It shouldn't be included, right?
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
grocery trips and trips to the mall and activities and things like that. Okay, fine. Now my submission that I originally received was only the first 6 pages, and that's fine. But as well as the CMHC calculation that you've done. But in terms of the cap rate on page 5 for multifamily, probably safe to say that none of these broker studies include social housing. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what's inside, to be honest.
Okay, so but you do know that when you look at these broker studies, they do tend to only include investment grade properties.
I didn't look through them.
Okay, what's included in your evidence? So I just want to speak to it. But if our property is outside of the parameters of what the brokers are suggesting, then we should be looking at a cap rate of above 6% likely on the high end of the market. Okay, now just to speed things up here, we've talked about the CMHC. Now that's a check that you've done, but again, the CMHC. Here's the interesting thing: is it safe to say that the CMHC inputs that derive those models are similar to the city's model? In that they include properties that are vastly superior to our subject. There's catered amenities. Just to be very clear, this is a low quality build. It doesn't have air conditioning, and some of the properties that are included in this model have racquetball courts and pools. So is it safe to say that there's a divide between these two models that you're using to derive a market value for ours versus the actual economic realities of our property?
Yeah, like there's going to be, in any grouping, there's going to be properties that are better, and there's going to be properties that are worse, that don't have, the exterior repairs from the water, whatever you're saying, upgrades. And, we're 83, we're in the middle of 75 and 89. We're in Fort Garry, and we're in the middle of the range of these categories. So there's going to be better and there's going to be worse.
Okay. Okay. But in terms of the modeled rent comps that you've used here, they're all vastly superior. That's safe to say, is it not?
I mean, I haven't looked into them. I'm just going, all I've heard about them is what you're saying, so I can't confirm or deny it at this point.
Right. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay. Mr. Story?
Thank you very much. Okay, 65 South Park Drive. Again, this is the same asset. Not much has changed. So just in the interest of expedience, I will suggest that the changes that we've made for this year, we looked at the same rental comps. Again, I used Killarney as 33 Killarney, as I did in the previous cycle. It's a very good comparable. Now in subsequent days after this was filed, I did find another one on Ulster that's very similar, wood construction, built in the early 1980s, and those rents were using $11.59 for a 3-bedroom. I checked the reference date. That private apartment was renting for $1,200 at the reference date for a 3-bedroom. So that further supports our value. I'm just submitting that to you anecdotally. So we did use not the average, but we did use our best comparable, which again is 33 Killarney. You've seen the photos of it. And we're suggesting that an appropriate rate for a 2-bedroom is $1,047, and for a 3-bedroom is $1,159. We have applied that in our calculation. Vacancy, we are accepting the applied collection loss rate of 3%. And I just have included that CMHC table that shows you that as the suite count or the number of bedrooms goes up, so does the vacancy. So typically somebody might look at this and say there's more risk for vacancy. But again, in the interest of narrowing our issues, we've not disputed the 3%. Stabilized expenses are applied a ratio of 54%. This includes a stabilized R&M expense of $1,404 per suite, giving us an NOI of $196,849. Again, we continue to apply a cap rate of 6.25 based on what we see in the market, and then adjusting upwards to account for the site-specific issues related to social housing. Again, no property-specific reserve fund, which is very important. Budget housing, no landlord, no air conditioning, low-income tenancy, no economic profit, and deferred maintenance. We've talked about the board order supporting this, and I've mentioned to you from the excerpt from Valuation and Market Studies for Affordable Housing. So the Manitoba Municipal Board and the Appraisal Institute are in line with our methodology of deriving what would be a typical market rate and then applying upwards to account for increased risk in a theoretical situation where this property would sell on the free and open market. So with all these points taken into consideration, we do suggest that a value of no more than $3,150,000 is appropriate. And the balance of my brief is similar to the previous brief. So I think we've covered most of this. And again, just very quickly, at the very last page, you can see the effects of no economic profit. The property loses almost 7,000 one year, 14,000 the next year, 28,000 the next year. So again, this is not an exercise in trade. This is social housing, and this is why the market views these properties with an increased risk profile. So again, we do respectfully submit that a value of $3,150,000 is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
Oh, from me? Okay. Let me see.
Oh, sorry, not for the assessor, for the applicant. Sorry. That was my fault.
Well, I think we pretty much went over it already on the last go around, so I'm not going to ask any questions on this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay, and I just would like to confirm then that this matter on the doc was number 5. This was the 2020 assessment, and this is going to be your presentation for number 3 and number 5. Is that correct, for the 2020 and 2021 assessment for both of you?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we have finished with 65 South Park Drive then.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
We can move on to the next matter on the docket, which will be 459 Henderson Highway.
All right, so please. The evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is everyone ready to? This will give. Are you ready? Okay, Mr. Baracus, please proceed when you are ready.
Okay, just let me get set here. One moment.
To save time, 459 Henderson, do you have actual rents? Your evidence doesn't show actual rents or questionnaires?
Hang on, I'm trying to pull stuff off the computer here. Okay, so for 2019, just looking at this one, I don't have any rents. That predates the construction of the property.
Okay, so we'll ask the board to confirm 2019.
To confirm, so that is number 2? Okay. Okay, so we are still on the number one, which is the 2020.
Okay, so you want me to present right now? We're doing swearing in, or are we just going?
He's been sworn in already, I believe.
Oh,
correct?
okay. Sounds good.
Okay,
I
yeah.
must have missed that.
So please proceed.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. File number 20-596. Roll number 02000423,459 Henderson Highway, roll year 2020, April 1st, 18, reference date. Assessed value 1,257,000. We got it built in 17. 6 suites, 6 outdoor parking spots, construction class D, water steel frame walls, C2 zoning. Can't say what the property sold for, so it's omitted on page 2. We've got our modeled workup on page 3 with our 1152.59 in terms of average rent, model expense ratio, and our $52,000 net operating income with a 4.2 cap. Just glancing ahead, unless anything has changed, the main difference between the applicant and I is the cap rate that's being applied to the property. So I will try and move past the rent and expenses. Again, like I mentioned in the last hearing at Jared, from page 5 to 7, that's our cap rate stuff. I talked about it in the last hearing, and I'm sure you've all heard me talk about it in others before. So I won't dive deep into that. Page 8 just shows the property from review, our internet website. A 2-story property on Henderson Highway. So it's got a stucco exterior. It's got a couple balconies out front. Scrolling through, you can see the inside of the property. It's a new building. Essentially, it's down to cap rate on this. Our cap rate 4.2 is as per age, area, and size. That's how the model assigns it. So that's what it got. That's my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. DuPont, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, the subject cap rate is 4.2%. Would you agree that most of your cap rates are 5 and above?
Yeah, for the most part, that's true.
So why is this lower, much lower than other apartments?
It's assigned by age, area, and size. So in this market region for this vintage of property, it gets a 4.2 cap rate.
Would you say the properties in this area of the same age would have 5 or more in cap rate? And then the main difference is in size?
Let me see. This is market region 1. So, and the size of this property is 747. So in terms of the size, if it's less than 8,000, even going back to the bracket between 46 and 59, which is a 4.8 cap, we've got lower caps in this market region. 60 to 74 is 4.8. 75 to 97 for 4 is a 4.4 cap, and 98 and later is a 4.2. Now this is just for properties up to 8,000 square feet. Once you get to 8,000 to 15,000, it's 4.5 for 98 and later, and it's 4.7 for 97 to 75, and then it's from 60 to 74, we get a 5.1. So and also for 15,000, the cap rates 98 and later start at 5, and then they slowly move up from there until you get to the oldest age bracket. So there's actually a bunch in terms of these smaller apartments in this market region that have sub 5 caps.
So the 5%, the line is how many square feet?
Okay, so in terms of the 8,000, it goes 4.8. It's 4.8 in the 46 to 59 group. And then when we get to 45 and earlier, it goes up to 6.1 in our model.
But is there a dividing line where it qualifies for 5%? What square footage does it have to be?
For this particular vintage, yes. That would be 15,000 square feet. It gets 5%.
Okay. Page 5, you have cap rates from the markets. The second last at the bottom is multifamily. Would you agree that Colliers, CBRE, Cushman & Wakefield start at 5%? Except Cushman has one starting high rise 4.75, but low rise
Yes.
or more.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so you agree that your cap rates on those smaller properties are not supported by the market studies? Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Our low end is lower.
At page 7, that's your cap rate comparables, and the second last table is the apartments. And the first 3, they're smaller walk-ups, built 70s, 60s. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they are. They're smaller. If you look at the unit count, and they've got lower cap rates assigned to them as well.
Would you agree they were bought with the intention to renovate?
I know that there's been some rebuttal information presented in the past and probably upcoming that would indicate that, but I know how much renovation indeed was done is something that the city and the applicant don't agree on the significance of it and whether it should disqualify the cap rate or not. But yeah, people buy apartments and they do some work to them. That's not atypical.
333 Ward's a newer property where you have 5%. Do you have any workup for that? That's how you arrived at it?
No, I don't have a city workup, but I've seen the Altus workup, and it's right around 5%, just above it.
Just about maybe a 0.25% off.
Pardon? Could you say that again?
Well, you see, just about isn't our cap rate almost a 0.25% more?
Well, yeah, you have your cap rate 0.25% more, but I believe there's a waste and snow stabilization difference we have where it would round down to 5. But I didn't do a site-specific stabilization personally on the ward, so I don't have a table for you.
That's all questions I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marks.
Questions might have been answered, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
And I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. So Mr. DuPont, please proceed with your presentation.
Our presentation, you can skip to page 5. Our cap rates for 1998 plus is 5.25. We have a cap rate report to that effect. Page 6 is the spreadsheet. I have a couple of errors where on the top left I showed 2019 assessments, actually 2020. And at the bottom, line 35, this is the indicated 2019 market, actually 2020. So we don't dispute the assessment net income. So we only dispute the cap rate, 5.25, And I think I had slightly different NOI, and I should not. 52805 is the NOI, I believe. 52805. So my revised value is 10,058,000. Makes sense. 100. No, 1,005. 1,006. As it goes up by 1,000.
What was your NOI, sorry?
I'll agree with you, sir, at 52,805. I had 52,781. So my NOI is in error. So it's only a few dollars difference there. That's my submission on the report. I have the cap rate rebuttal and the cap rate study to give as evidence.
All right. Mr. Baracus, do you have any questions?
I have some rebuttal just in terms of the Altus cap rate. I'll try and go quick because you guys have heard it all before. But there's some newer parts that have been getting added to this. So I feel that I at least have to present those parts in particular. So if you could, there's two rebuttal files. There's one that's it's got a 1 next to the file name. I don't have these in front of me, just going to memory. And there's one that has a 2 next to it. The one I want you guys to first take a look at says sales mailers and 210 St. Mary's, page 8, correctly stabilized. If you could please open that.
Okay.
Okay, so the first few pages, page 1 to 7, these are just sales mailers showing in highlighted sections, and I've gone over this before, so for the purpose of expediency, I'm going to go through it. I'll just say they indicate cap rates on 210 St. Mary's and 718 Beach by the vendor that are, by the purchaser rather, that are a lot lower than what the applicant is indicating in their cap rate study on page 5.
That's my cap rate study yet. So should we now wait for that for his rebuttal?
Yes. I guess what order do we want to do this in? I mean, you're rebutting his evidence that hasn't been put in.
Well, it was submitted to the board and would be presumably considered as evidence, right?
Yes, he hasn't spoken to it. So, Mr. DuPont, should the assessor go through his rebuttal and then you'll be able to speak to it? Is that okay with you?
I would like to present my cap rate study, and I would like to present my rebuttal on his, so that should go first also, and then he can give the rebuttal.
Okay, Mr. Baracus, will you agree to that then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Mr. DuPont, then go ahead with that.
So I should go with the rebuttal first to his cap rate. And page 1, it states.
Well, just let us get to that for a minute, okay? I have to find it. Altus Real Estate Forum cap rates, is that the one?
No.
Oh, no, that's my second one.
Oh, okay, sorry. I have to find what I'm.
Altus Group 2020 apartments, rebuttal evidence.
Okay, wait, no, this is the Altus cap rate study for apartments.
That's coming next.
Okay, so I found everything except the one I need in this file.
That I emailed last night.
I don't get them when you email, like I have, why do I have the Municipal Assessment Act in this file? Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, just bear with me so I can.
Almost right at the bottom.
The 2020 apartment assessment rebuttal evidence assessor capitalization rates?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, yay. Okay, please proceed.
All right, so page 1. We'll start off, clause number 1, so the President of the Municipal Board, 18.431 and 2018 was
Excuse me.
was stated that the ISR has the sales regarding, and 3 of them regarding the purchaser's intention to significantly renovate or alter the structure. The appellant produced evidence from the purchase, which makes the board question the use of purchase price and income information. So in essence, considering these types of properties. Number 2, so sale number 1, 191 Rogue. Purchaser stated in the assessor property sale questionnaire, which is in the appendix, that the property was purchased with the intent to renovate and that the condition was fair. And the rents on the questionnaire were relatively low at $6.50 per suite. That questionnaire is in the appendix. The assessor sent that to the owners and they filled it out. Number 3, sale number 2, C94 Talbot. We have an email from Asteroid, the property manager, before and after the sale. A states the property was purchased with intent to renovate. The questionnaire shows rents of $537 for 1 bedroom, $653 for 2 bedroom. A recent website ads states totally renovated and the rents were $800 and $900. So a significant increase in rents. Number 4, point number 4, sale number 3, 285 Maxwell, purchased with intent to renovate. We got an email from the purchaser indicating the intent to renovate. It confirms the renovation $413,000. Intention to raise rents over 3 years. We enclosed a 2018 questionnaire confirming the kitchen and bathroom renovations of 412,798, 790. So the actual questionnaire confirmed the amount. And sale number 4, that 333 Ward, our direct evidence 5.13% versus the assessor at 5. The assessor has no supporting document, there's no income approach, and they have the burden of proof. On the appendix, we do have that board decision in full, and we have these questionnaires and these emails confirming what I just said in that first page. So that would be my rebuttal. I believe we're subject to cross-examination on this particular piece of evidence before we move on.
Okay, just on going quick, just on page 9, the first paragraph that's underlined. The second paragraph has some underlined portions, and in the middle of it says the appellant produced evidence from the purchasers which made the board question the use of the purchase price and income information. Says the board does not accept that any intention to renovate should disqualify the property sale. The renovation must be of significant financial investment on the part of the property owner, one that will cause future rents to substantially increase, and should usually involve modification to the building envelope and realignment of structural walls. Do they do this sort of envelope and structural wall realignment on these sales you're saying that have been renovated?
No, basically it says though they question all the sales that the assessor had, and the assessor did not have, I believe, properties with modification of building envelope or realignment of structural walls. I don't know where that comes from. But in essence, they disqualified all these sorts of sales on that particular decision.
Okay, and then just on page 11, this is the Roque sale. At the bottom, it says they did $100,000. They planned $100,000 of suite upgrades, and they paid $3,725,000, which is in around the 2% range. Would you consider that significant planned upgrades in relation to what they paid for the property?
Let me see if that is. That's 36 suite, so it's 3,000 per suite. That's significant.
Okay, that's my questions in regards to the rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay, Mr. Dupont?
All right, so the cap rate study itself. Page 1 of that study indicates what we have for different types. In 1998 plus, we have 4.25, 5.25, and the assessors from 4.2 to 5. And the below 5 is below 15,000 square feet. Page 2, we show a table of cap rates we have for 2020 and what we had for 2018. And a lot of categories were going up 0.25%. No, we explain that later. So now we're at page 2, 3. That's our cap rate comparables. So we show the last 2 comparables: 333 Ward, 718 Beach, 100 Southview. Those are newer properties. Then it shows the year built, 2006, 2014, and 2014. The cap rates that we derived was 5.13, 5.42, 5.59. And the cap rate average in the second last column for 2006 plus was 5.38. So we have 3 sales to support our position at 5.25. We have full documentation and full income approach on those 3 comparables. Now the next page, we show the market reports. The Colliers, we show Colliers adjusted and unadjusted. So the Colliers cap rate is 0.25% as per Colliers is due to increase. No, sorry, as shown in the pro formas on the paragraph. There's 3 sales, 25, page 25, 40, 55, and they show how they do their cap rates, and they include closing costs. So that would include the premium of 0.10, 1/10 of 1%, their cap rate. So we adjust our cap rates that they have from their study by that, based on those 3 sales. But the increase in cap rate of 0.25% as per Collier is due to increase in mortgage rate by 0.6%. Then we show the table of the mortgage rates. At the bottom, the 5-year mortgage rates increased by 60 basis points. So the Collier's cap rate, what it was adjusted, high rise, low rise. So the high rise was 4.85 to 5.85, and now it's 5.1 to 6.1. So they increased 0.25% for high rise, and low rise, what it went up, it's 0 for the low end, but it went up 0.25% to the high end. That supports the 0.25% increase that we have. We can go to, I guess, one of the comparables. 333 Ward starts on page 56. Photo on page 57 is an email from the purchaser saying they bought it with 5.44 cap rate. Then we have the financial analysis. We have the rent rolls. Then we have the financial statements, page 61.
Madam Chair, I don't have those pages.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, can you
I believe I sent the appendix in the second.
look into why?
They were too big and we had to send it in parts.
So the two I received from you, I had the one specific short rug, and then I had the cap rate rebuttal.
Oh, yeah, but when I filed the reports, and I believe Jarrett Story may have been involved because I had problems sending it because it was too big. And Jared had done it before, and so I believe I asked him.
Well, the document I have has 120 pages, so obviously it's there. So can somebody please get it to the assessor?
Oh, I have it. I have the.
Oh, sorry.
Absolutely.
I don't have it.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't. Oh, sorry. You don't have. I'm sorry. I thought the assessor didn't have it.
Or is it contained under 65 South Park?
No, I sent it separately.
It's listed under, if you look, item number 1.
I can give you hard copies now.
You have it. See, mine ends it. It shows the appendix, right? But there's no appendix. It ends it.
And that's on the cap rate study.
That's on the applicant cap rate study. Now, under 65 South Park, there's the 126 pages.
Oh, okay, so he got his full,
He got his address mixed up.
but he got the full study too, though.
Which one is,
That's item 5, file 20-580, applicant cap rate study 2020.
okay,
That's where it is.
okay,
My apologies there. Y'all have it now, though.
Yes.
that's okay, you get it by lunch. Okay, I think I've got it all there.
Okay, that's the one. Okay, so everyone has access to it now?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Okay.
And what page were you on?
56, 57. Then I was showing you where the financial statements started. Then we can leave that for now. And we can jump to page 78. That's the data I have for property on the 100 South View. So that's a newer project also. So the page 78, 80, these are the data that we had on this 83 and 84. We have financial plans, etc. So those three cap rates, the workups are on page 12, 12, 13, and 14. So page 12 will show how we arrived at the cap rate. And we stabilized the rents, the rent roll as of September 15, 2015, as per Collier's. And the property was sold January 15, 2016, so that was the rent available to the owner. Then the page 13, 718 Beach is another newer property. That shows the data that we have. Then we also have, Stevenson did an appeal on this property as to what they were using, then the pro forma and how we stabilized, and we arrived at 5.42. Page 14 is the 100 Southview. Fairfax did appeal on it. They had NOI of 1,654,000, 5 3/4. The assessor shown in the first column. They had 5%, and then pro forma at 5.4, and from those items we stabilize and we get 5.59. And to be noted in the pro forma that they're putting it on the market saying this is 5.4% if you buy. And then it says in the remarks, the vendor guarantees 95% occupancy for 3 years. So it has very good terms, and yet every purchaser could get 5.4% as per their calculation of the pro forma, but my calculation is 5.59. So that's my evidence on cap rates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baracus.
Okay, do you want me to do questions? Or do you want me to do cap rate rebuttal first? It'll be quick.
Well, I guess should ask your questions, I suppose.
Okay. Since it's mostly in regards to the cap rate, I'll stick to this section of questions just to the newer properties in the report. So we've got Ward, Beach, and Southview. Given the amount of units in the area, can we agree that Beach is the best cap rate comparable in your study?
For 459 Henderson, yeah, they also have a low amount of suites, 6, or the closest to Henderson.
Okay, so just so you've got 542. So just scrolling to where the workup is. That workup is found on page 13. So just looking at it quickly, I noticed on line 27 on page 13, you opted to go. It's a newer property, so there's naturally going to be lower repair and maintenance in the first few years. The pro forma indicated $4,404 as an assumed repair and maintenance expenditure, but you chose a lower amount at $3,000, which is $500 a suite. Can you maybe give us an idea on why you did that instead of using the pro forma numbers?
The actuals shown in the prior 2 years, 2015, 2016, were 1,080, 2207. So I decided to give more weight to the actual performance than to a pro forma, which is an opinion. And I believe it's reasonable in relation to the actual repair maintenance.
Okay. Would you agree that on a long-term basis, 500 a unit on R&M seems quite low in comparison to what we've seen brought in here on the subject property side at the border revision?
The repair maintenance is likely going to increase on a gradual basis as it ages. But when we do totally renovated properties or newer properties, we tend to go with site specific, so that at the point in time in their path, they're relatively new and they have not gotten the higher repair maintenance. We do not usually speculate much higher repair maintenance when we're doing appeals.
Okay. So just to be clear, if you did stabilize the repair and maintenance higher over a known sale price, that would decrease the net operating income and calculate a lower cap rate?
Of course, if somebody would change the repair and maintenance, it would change the cap rate.
Okay. In regards to just the cap rate study, you've heard me ask questions before. I'm going to just leave it there. because you've heard my concerns before, and then I'll just present my cap rate rebuttal.
Okay, just give me one minute then. Mr. Marks,
Okay.
do you have any questions for Mr. Dupont?
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions.
Okay, nor do I. Okay, please proceed.
Okay, so there's two files. There's one that has a 1 beside it, and there's one that has 2 beside it. So if you open the one that says, it says sales mailer and 210 St. Mary's, page 8 correctly stabilized. If you open that.
Just wait a second. Sales mailer and 210 St. Mary's. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So the first 7 pages just show, they're showing that if you go to page 7, Beach, they actually indicated that they purchased the property with an assumed 4.5% cap rate. We don't know how they calculated that, but it might be assumed that they would expect to spend more than $500 per unit on an ongoing long-term investment basis to keep the property in its current condition. And an example of how stabilizing one number can drastically change the cap rate. Please turn to page 8. What you have here on page 8 is 210 St. Mary's, which is the first property in Altus's cap rate study, which can be found on page 6. And basically what I did is I took the repair and maintenance and I pushed it back a couple years to get a more accurate snapshot. I thought 332 per suite was pretty low. The applicant averaged these figures, and it included the year where they only spent $959, which is double digits on a per suite basis. If you exclude the $959 and you exclude the higher year to try and be balanced, the 23,000 year, it stabilizes to $760 per unit. All the other figures are the same. I didn't change them. And what you end up calculating a cap rate for this 52 at 5.7, which is a big difference from 6.26. And that's just changing one number. That's going from 332 to just shy of 760. And so you'd have to ask yourself, what would a purchaser on a long-term basis, having access to 5 years of repair and maintenance, what would they actually assume their repair and maintenance to be? So this just shows how when we have the low per suite repair and maintenance, and it's not what an investor would expect to spend on an ongoing basis, it can really skew cap rate calculations. So there's that. My second file for rebuttal just shows some information that was found in regards to some other Altus cap rate information. Just let me know when you guys have that open.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's got a 2 at the top.
Yeah.
So this was found online. It was in regards to a presentation made by Altus at the Winnipeg Real Estate Forum, May of 2018. I included the entire package. I'm not going to go through it, but if you skip, just included the whole package to show that I wasn't pulling this out of nowhere. If you flip to page 12, you'll see what Altus was presenting there on the day in regards to cap rates in Winnipeg. So we have cap rates that are declining, as you see here, and they've been declining like below 5% since 2013. When I plotted, if you go to page 14, and I plotted these against the cap rate properties provided in the Altus cap rate study, they are all significantly, markedly higher than what was told to everybody at the Winnipeg Real Estate Forum. So it makes you wonder why there is such a large gap between what's being presented on the tax side to you guys at Board of Revision and what they're saying elsewhere. So I feel that they shouldn't put any weight on what Altus is saying because they're saying two different things. I've said this before, that's my rebuttal.
Thank you very much, Mr. DuPont. Do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, if you were an appraiser with a different company other than Altus Group, would they rely on that cap rate table? Or would they do their own cap rate comparables?
If I wasn't an appraiser working for another company, would I revise?
Would they rely on the table like this or have to rely on their own comparable?
Well, if they were doing an appraisal, they would pull their own comparables.
Do their own, you say?
They would, yeah, for an appraisal, they would pull their own comparables.
Right. So would you say that the cap rate comparables that I have in my cap rate report are primary evidence, and this is side evidence, reference evidence, which are not primary or is not to be relied upon. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you say that last part again? It's not to what?
It's not primary evidence, and it's not to be relied upon to establish cap rate.
Well, I'm not saying it shouldn't be relied upon. I'm saying that there seems to be a huge gap in regards to what the Board of Revision is being told, what the cap rate trend is going on in the city, and what Altus is telling other forums.
And you report three others, Colliers and Chivardi and Cushman. Would you agree that these Altus cap rates are lower than those three other market reports?
Are you referring to my rebuttal? Then yeah, like your range, it says the historical capitalization rate is like 4.5.
And would you agree that for your own cap rates that you've been presenting Board of Revision, you never was giving this as one of the market reports to consider?
We haven't presented this as a market report. This was something that was found on a Winnipeg Real Estate Forum website that gave us cause to concern. In comparison to what's being presented by Altus, you can see on page 14, they're all so much higher. And then it just makes you wonder why.
And that would be from the appraisal division of Altus, not the tax division of Altus. You would agree with that?
Yeah, we're just looking for market value.
No, but you're saying Altus and Altus, but there's two separate divisions. You would agree with that?
I don't know how your organization is organized. I would think that there would be consistency across the board in regards to capitalization and market value.
I believe you answered, you agreed they're from separate divisions then.
If that's what you're saying, then I have to agree with you because you work there.
That's all the questions I have on that. I do have a statement to make on that.
Well, we'll get to that. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay, so I guess we will have.
I have a statement in regards to.
Yes, no, I know. So for summary, Mr. Baracus, would you like to summarize?
I mean, we've been talking about cap rate for so long on this, and I mean, with this new information on my rebuttal with the Altus Real Estate Forum cap rates, it's like they told the Board of Revision one thing, but they're telling everybody else something else. So I think that I don't know what more I can present in that regard. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. DuPont?
Yes, recently in the last year or two, the appraisal arm of Altus and our tax, we exchanged cap rates and put it in the same file. I've seen their cap rates. They include cap rates with intention to renovate. So they include some of these weird purchases, but they had some low cap rates because they intended to renovate. So the RVA cap rates includes those. Municipal Board has excluded those. Colliers has stated in the previous hearing that they exclude those properties as it distorts the cap rate. Anyways, the RVA cap rate And that graph they have in cap rates includes properties with intention to renovate. And that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think we will take a short break now. What time is it? So, 20 after about? Okay, so we'll just take a short break and let's come back.
Okay.
About 10 minutes or so. Is that good for everyone?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Great, I'll call this meeting back to order. The next matter on the docket is 1792 Pembina Highway.
Okay.
I was going to say, Mr. Ruckus, please proceed when you are ready.
Yeah, just let me pull this up quick here. I know I have some notes in regards to occupancy that I want to speak on. Okay.
Are we starting with 2020?
Yeah, 2020. Okay.
Are we doing them are they going to be the same evidence or are they different?
Yeah, they're the same. Or no, they're different. Sorry, there's different vacancy applied to them. So they're different, but 2021 will be really quick because of this. So I pulled the wrong one up. And here we go. Okay. File number 20-590, roll number 03093003250792 Pembina Highway. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. We have an assessed value of $44,977,000. It's a new build. It's a big one. 2019, 282 suites, 129 indoor parking, 159 outdoor parking spots, construction class D, steel framed exterior walls. It predates the reference date in terms of mailers, so we did not, there's no penalty to be sought. So if you go to page 3, you'll see the income value summary. I put this one on the roll. I was the one who did this one. So what I did is I took the actual rent and then I factored it back to bring it back to the reference date to show that, you know, we're not overstepping things. It's got a 25% vacancy rate on it. This place is really big. And when I was corresponding with the property manager, let me see here. The property was completed in stages. There are different sections to the overall building. According to the property manager, the completion dates were as follows. For building 1, February 4th, 2020. For building 2, April 1st, 2020. Building 3, June 3rd, 2020. For floors 3 to 6, and June 16th, 2020 for floors 1 and 2. The total vacant units as of July 8th was about 49%. And then so what I did to account for typical lease up time for an apartment of this size, and there's still being 50% vacancy in July of 2020. I didn't issue the supplementary notice until it was all done, even though there were sections that were finished at months prior, and that can be confirmed in regards to lease move-in dates on the rent roll. And then, so what was done then is 25% vacancy was applied a lot of these really big ones, they take a while to lease up. And this was done in July of 2020. I didn't want to overstep the assessment. To take this into consideration, I've done a few of these big ones, and we've come to agreements with other members of Altus. Where this, in these specific instances, it's sometimes appropriate, and I felt it was. So that's why there's a larger vacancy on it. Expense ratio 41.59. With our 5% cap, generates capitalized estimated market value of 44,977,000. We have our comps on page 4, supporting our my overridden rent. I just took the rent that was on the rent roll and factored it back, so it's definitely not overstated. Our cap rates we've talked about ad nauseum. So if you go to my page 8 and 9, you'll see the construction permit for the place. If you scroll to page 9, we've got a total project value of 54 million, which is less than what we're signing this property 2020. Vacancy plays a hand in that. I was trying to give them some consideration, given that they're only 50% full, and sometimes these big places they take a while to lease up. So I was trying to give them something there. Then the following pages are the pictures from the website. Page 10 onward gives you an idea, pardon me, of the interior of the property. It's on Pembina, close to Bishop Brandon. Let me see here. The majority are 2-bedroom suites. So that's how I put it on the roll, and that's how I determined the assessment. So for this roll year, that's my evidence.
Thank you very much. Mr. DuPont, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Finance page 3. You come approach. The expense ratio you have there for 1.59%, is that the same expense ratio if you were 2.4% occupied?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the expense ratio.
It should be the extent.
Is that correct? So that's a long-term.
It's the same, yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So the when you apply it to 2021, the expenses are 2,083,780. But when you apply here, it's only 1,006,000, mainly because you're applying the 41% to a property after 25. So you're not double counting the
Yeah. Well, what it is like with the vacancy is that you got less people in there bashing the place up, so you have to do less repairs.
Less what?
You do less repairs because there's less people in there wearing the property down, damaging the property through accidents or otherwise. So that's why the expenses are. I feel it's appropriate that the expenses differ.
Expenses that you found at 41%, that's your long-term value, which would be 2,008,000 at the regular vacancy, which would include taxes, full taxes you expect going forward, and utilities going forward, which do not change. So most of those expenses are fixed. There's actually only one expense that is percentage, is management. The rest are basically fixed. The repair and maintenance as of January 1st, 2021 was still below, right? And whatever it is, your 41%, your 2 million in expenses.
Well, I'm just presenting on 2020 here. Like I haven't talked about the 2.4 yet, but yeah, we can talk about it. It's the same presentation. I just changed. I didn't put an override because at the time when I put the property on the roll, I didn't know, pardon me, what the vacancy rate was going to be like, in 2021. And so I was trying to, be understanding that a large property like this.
Anyways, a lot more would have 41.59% expenses of a normal vacancy. And so then if you had that 2.4% vacancy, you see, this is the value, but I want to adjust now for the lease up and the present vacancy, and you adjust the vacancy rate, and then that drops the expenses drastically. So you're not double counting when you do that.
Well, the rent includes hydro, heat, and water as well. I applied the vacancy. I didn't really consider double adjusting or anything like that. But I think 25% vacancy is quite high and it's quite generous considering the fact that they were at 50%, even though some sections of the building didn't go online until June. So I think in regards to the overall net operating income, and when you look at what it costs to build the place, I think about a $10 million discount in lease-up time on their assessment. I think that's pretty generous.
Okay, I'm not discussing vacancy. No, would you agree that the current vacancy is about 30%?
The current vacancy, I mean, I don't know what the current vacancy is. I don't have, haven't reviewed a recent, no, I have, all I know is around mid 2020, it was around 50%. And that was right after they were just completing sections of the building.
I got no further questions on the 2020. We move on to 2021 now, or before I make my presentation?
Well, just 1 minute, please. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions about the 2020 presentation?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions.
Okay, so then I guess I have no questions either. So I guess what we'll do then, Mr. Brock, is we'll have you do your 2021 presentation or whatever variations you have for that one. And then Mr. DuPont can do his presentation because is it the same presentation for both, Mr. DuPont?
I have a different value for both, same as Matthew. But they're the same report.
It's the same app. Okay, so Mr. Brockis, do you have a different presentation you want to make for 2021?
So yeah, essentially like the details in terms of income and expenses are the same. The difference was the 2.4 on the vacancy rate. I dropped them back down to model vacancy. I had no idea what the vacancy would be at the time. I know these places typically take a long time to lease up, but again, it only recently came online 100% in July. And anyone with the capacity to finance a construction project at $54 million, this is going to be a long-term investment. Their valuation is a long-term investment. Isn't for, they're not going to look at it. A vendor's not going to sell it saying, okay, well, we just built this and we haven't leased it up yet, but we're going to agree to a sale price with a huge vacancy on it. That's just, it's willing buyer and seller, and a willing, knowledgeable seller is not going to do that. So we don't know what the vacancy is going to be like 2021, which will also be the valuation rollover 2022. So I didn't apply an override to this vacancy rate because it's still unknown, and a purchaser and a seller, they're not going to agree to a sale price based on an inflated vacancy rate. I could have gone for model vacancy on 2020, but I was trying to be understanding because this is a large project. So that's why I just applied the 2.4 to 2021. and I just ran it through there. The value came out to $58.5 million, which is really close to the $54 million construction, let alone the value of the land and whatever else is good. So when you look at it as a whole, I didn't think that I was overstating the value of the project on a long-term basis at all. So that's my evidence for 2021.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dupont.
If the board disagrees with your value and goes with a higher vacancy, would the assessment department have the option to issue a supplement when it is in fact full? Because now you're guessing as to when it will be full or fully leased. Do you would agree you would have the option to do a supplement whenever it's fully occupied?
Sure, we could, yeah.
That's all questions.
Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
Nor do I. So, Mr. Dupont, please proceed with your presentations.
I did check with the owners as to whether they in fact 100% completed physically as of July 1st. They stated that the suites were occupiable, but they haven't finished some of the amenity rooms and some of the corridors. They haven't finished some of the balconies. But we're not going to make any argument that we should be reducing it because of that. But it's not fully 100% finished. So page 19, we got rent rolls as of July 1st. And the actual rent rolls goes on for pages and pages. So I just copied some of the first 7, then the 6th floor, and then page 20, I copied the end, which gives you the total. So the occupancy was 50.4% by dollar amount, and vacancy 49.6, very close to what Matt was saying. So as of July 1st, that's what it is, and we agree with the vacancy 25% that Matt applied. Now I asked for the current rent roll, which they gave to us on page 21. So as of October 1st, it shows the totals and I counted the units. So occupied by number of units is 71%, vacancy by number of units 28.7. But by dollar amount, by the amount of the vacancy, the rent is 3.1. So that's what I would be putting into my reports. So page 14, we dispute the cap rate because based on the cap rate study, should be 5.25 base. So at the bottom of page 14, we say we add a 0.25% premium for the risky lease up period for a total of 5.5 cap rate. So anybody buying whereas 50% vacant, it would allow for vacancy, but it would also allow for a higher return because they're buying it in a risky period. Big difference between doing the lease up and after it's fully leased up and fully completed, etc. So page 15, we show the assessors workup in gray and what ours is. So we agree with the rents. We show in red that July vacancy is 49.6%. And I see physical completion 97%. That the owner told me that at the bottom of the page, the amenities and balconies, and 20 walls, etc., would constitute about 3%. That is not done physically. So we agree with the effective gross income, line 13. We disagree with the expenses. The assessor has the expenses at $1.6 million, but he's applying the long-term expense ratio to a reduced EGI after vacancy, so they're in fact double counting. So we use the expenses if it were a 2.4% vacancy. That 41.59 would create an expense of $2,803,000. So we're saying we should use that expense ratio. And that gives it net operating income $1,766,000 and a 5.5 cap rate. Our base cap rate was 4% for risky lease period. Comes to a value of 32 million. And the remarks result just uses dollar amount of expenses from 2021 sub at 2.4% vacancy. Now I have a little discussion on expenses on page 14. Middle of the page says expenses. We agree with the dollar amount of expenses, but disagreed that expenses should be decreased if a higher vacancy allowance is allowed for the lease-up period. We are stabilizing net income based on long-term expectancy. And the expenses should also be long-term without adjustment if we adjust for vacancy. Otherwise, we're diminishing the vacancy adjustment by also decreasing the expenses, and that would be double counting. And the next paragraph says there would be some fixed costs and perhaps even higher landlord costs during lease-up, such as advertising, such as utilities. Landlord would have to pay for utilities for the vacant areas. And with lesser occupancy during lease-up, the landlord would have to the same cost for some items such as taxes, insurance, waste and snow, caretaker, security, income. These are all fixed costs, and there's some that be higher, like advertising and utility costs. So I don't think it makes sense to reduce the expenses if you reduce the rents by the vacancy. So that's my report on the 2020, page 16. There we disagree with the vacancy and cap rate. So we show in red that the October 1st, 2020 vacancy is 30.1. This is effective January 1st, 2021. So we don't know what the vacancy rate will be at January 1st, 2021, but it's not 2.4% now. It is in fact 30%. So they may not be fully occupied for 6 months, a year. Nevertheless, the assessor can issue a supplement bid happen. So our best guess for January 1st, 2021, we're saying we should be applying a 10% vacancy. So we use the assessor's rent, 10% vacancy. And we use the line 31, the total expenses, the total fixed expenses, 208,780. And then we capitalize at 5.5%. So that comes to 46 million. So the 58 million the assessor has is based on full occupancy and full expenses and at the low cap rate. So we adjust for vacancy, fixed expenses, and cap rate on this one. So that would be my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ruckus, do you have questions?
Yeah. Would you agree that anyone purchasing this property would do it looking at it as like a long-term investment given its size?
We see it as a long-term investment. What?
Would you agree that given the scope of the project and the size of the price tag on it, that anyone purchasing this would most likely be a highly knowledgeable buyer who would purchase it for a long-term financial investment?
Yes, they would certainly be calculating the long-term value and then make some adjustments for the fact that it's high vacancy and a higher risk. Basically, what you have done a long-term value at 2.4% vacancy and that expense ratio. That's a long-term value that is after the lease-up period. And then you need to do adjustments for the lease-up period, the higher vacancy and the higher risk.
Okay. So do you think a vendor would agree to a sale price? Like for instance, on the 2021, because I gave a pretty big break on 2020. On 21, do you think they would agree to sell the place at a 10% vacancy on the long term in the calculation of value?
They would have to sell at a discount if they sold before the lease up is done. It's not a good time for them to sell. If they can hang on they should wait till it's fully occupied, then they can put sell. That's the ideal time. So if they sell it in a time that's not ideal, because of the financial difficulties, some other things, they would have to give some kind of discount. And the one way to look at a discount, supply a vacancy, which you have done for the July 1st, 2020. You've applied, you recognize the vacancy. July 1st, but you do not know what the vacancy will be, and what you have forecasted is full occupancy, which I believe I disagree with. So
Okay.
a purchaser and or vendor would be looking at a sale price based on the vacancy at the time and looking towards the future where it would be fully occupied at a certain rent. But there's a risk at that point in time because you don't know whether the market will accept those rents, how long it will take, all sorts of things.
Okay, so that that leads me to my next question. So you've considered the vacancy, the vacancy in the current short-term time frame. Looking at it 2021, we've seen that, and you've also applied on top of the vacancy. You've also added a capitalization rate premium on top of the vacancy consideration. So to me, that seems like double adjusting for something that's already been considered. Would you not agree?
Well, there's two ways to adjust for the lease up vacancy. One is the vacancy itself, and one is the higher risk, which is captured in the cap rate. I don't think that there's anything that says you can't have both. It's possible that you can say we'll do only one. In your case, you have done only one. But there is, in fact, higher risk. You'd say, well, okay, we'll allow the vacancy, but going forward, we still don't know as a purchaser how this is going to play out. That's whether the vacancy will last for longer, whether the rents will have to go down, etc. So therefore, there's still a risk.
Okay.
So adjusting with the two factors is the proper way to go.
Would you agree that it would take longer than typical for a 282 unit apartment building to lease up? Than as a small compared to a smaller one? Sorry.
Yeah, I guess because it's bigger, it'll take longer. So it's more risky that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, I mean, I'm not going to touch on cap. We disagree on cap, but you guys have heard my arguments before. So those are my questions for both files. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marks.
Yes, is there full occupancy on that right now? I mean, they've been granted their occupancy permit?
They were granted occupancy permit exactly July 1st, 30th. So they could occupy the suites, and they were 97% physically complete because they still had other things, the amenity rooms and finishing the balconies, etc.
So there's some of the amenities within the complex that aren't yet completed?
That's right. Amenity rooms, the lounge rooms, or whatever it is, the lobbies and all that. So they had occupancy permit as of July 1st.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Just one question. So when was the sub issued for 2020?
I can get that for you quick. The SUP was issued. I have it in my notes here. The supplementary issue notice was issued July 1st.
Of 2020.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Okay, I do not have any questions. So is there a need for summary from either party?
It takes a while to rent these places up, and if we're looking at occupancy July, they have 30% left to go in just a few months. So I think model vacancy for 2021 is correct, and I think what I did for 2020 might be a little overly generous, actually. But that's the value. Those are the values I'm presenting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dupont.
Yes, the expenses, they're certainly double counting by giving a vacancy and then reducing the expenses because of the vacancy. So that, to me, that's double counting. That's very clear. You have fixed expenses, and virtually none of the expenses are based on the percentage of the income, except management. And I would say that management would likely be higher during a lease-up period. The manager would be going like crazy then. So they may be paying the manager on salaries on top of their 5%. So there is risk in vacancy and captured in vacancy cap rates. So we agree with the 25% vacancy for July 1st. So we applied 10% for January 1st, 2021, because we are guessing now ahead of time as to what it will be. And the assessors assuming will be fully occupied by then, and I don't think that's right. So I believe we should go with a 10% vacancy for 2021, and the assessor can issue a sub if and when it does become fully occupied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next matter on the docket is 267 Sherbrooke Street.
Can I take a 2-minute break here quick?
Of course, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll just adjourn for a couple minutes, everybody. Order 267 Sherbrooke Street, please proceed.
Okay, let me just pull this up quick. And 9. Okay. So the presentation is the same for both files.
Okay, both together then?
Yeah, the 2021. Okay, file 20-583. Roll number 12090575800-267 Sherbrooke Street. Roll year 2020, April 1st, 18 reference date, same reference date for 2021. We've got 2 lines classification here. It's a residence, so we've got apartment and we've got some commercial space in it, totaling 12,504,000. Built in 19, mixed use zoning. Construction class D, water steel frame walls. So they're still building them this way. I would argue that it's not a inferior method of construction like the previous representative has presented. So we have the income information from the property from 2016. Even though we have the property built as 2019, I'm not sure why we have something from 2016. Regardless, I didn't rely on that. I also put this property on the roll, so I just took the actuals that I received and factored back the rents on it. So on to the valuation. We've got comps on page 4. In terms of the average monthly rent, it's bracketed by the properties. Comparable one's not a good property because it's for commercial row house on Isabel, so I would suggest that you disregard that. Comparables 2 to 4, they are supportive. Just glancing ahead at my notes, what I have written down for the apartment side is capitalization rate is the primary difference. So because of that, I'm not going to touch on the expenses, income expenses, as so much as to save us some time here today. So we have our cap rate at 5 as per age, area, and size, calculating 11,514,000 on the CC20 residential side. There's also some commercial space on the property. We have got 4 different premises identified, and their rents range from $17.84 to $20.56 in terms of the calculation of potential rent. We've got the 5.5 vacancy, got a 2% expenses, and a 6.15 cap rate. I made an adjustment. The interiors aren't fixtured up. So what I did is I took a permit on 190 Smith. There's like an application for fixturing up a space there. That can be found on page 13. So I just took that area and divided by the construction value to include construction of 2 washrooms, an office, receiving area, newly constructed tenant space, mechanical and electrical work, cosmetic as well. So I was just trying to figure out what it would cost to fix this place up because they're not finished yet. And I feel that should be considered as well. So that calculates to $2.73 per square feet. But I made a mistake when I calculated. $28.71 is what I put in my calculation. I'm not going to change it. I'm talking about 2 cents here. Pretty close. I'm not going to change the calculation because of that. So in going back to my brief, we've got comps from our model here on Portage and Sherbrooke near the area. And their leased areas range from 500 to almost 1,700, and their net rents range from 17.24 up to 23.27 as per generated our model. Put these in the brief based on that information. So it looks like the net rents are supported in that regard. So flowing through, you have on page 7, you have our calculations of both the apartment stream, which is, I believe the debate is just on cap rates, and then we have the office stream, which was calculated with potential rent based on what I just said, and our modeled expenses, shortfall coming up with a net operating income, and the fixturing adjustment to take into account the fact that they're not fixtured up. So I made a little deduction there too. So 11,515 for CC20, 890 for the commercial spot, comes up with 12,405. Thank you. That's my evidence.
Thank you very much. Mr. DuPont, do you have questions?
Yes, would you agree the commercial space is totally vacant?
Yes, as to my knowledge, yeah.
The vacancy is a normal vacancy, 5.5%.
Yeah, that's what we have in the model generated, yeah.
Would you not agree that you should have a higher vacancy for this lease-up period?
No, let me just pull something here. We don't apply an override unless it's something that's chronic, like it's a spot that's chronically vacant, they can't fill it. Like, I mean, this is a newer place. We have a actual year built and effective year built of 2019. So, I mean, if it was still vacant and several years down the line, then that's something we would consider, but definitely not for a new build.
How much parking do you show for this property?
How much parking do we show? Let me see here. I don't have any on my property description. Let me just see if I can pull an aerial up of this property. Is it in your brief?
But yeah, the aerial map shows there's no parking, no room for parking on site, but that's the interior parking, which I assume they would have.
Okay, so if my computer is a bit slow, so that is showing that there is no on-site parking, yes, based on that map.
The computer shows what? Parking?
Based, like showing your map, it doesn't appear like there's on-site parking. Let me pull up my inspection notes.
Yeah, there is
See what
parking, but that's the interior, if any.
Let me pull this up. Sorry, I don't have multiple papers in front of me. It's all electronic. Okay. Commercial property. I don't have any notes in regards to parking. It doesn't look like we added anything to the record. Let me check your brief.
Is there a questionnaire by your client yet? Showing the property description?
A questionnaire from the client.
Mr. Dupont, do you know the answer to how much parking there is so we can move on from this?
Too much time on that. We'll assume there's indoor parking. Would you agree to that, Matt?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but if you're saying so, I'll agree with that.
So nevertheless, so for apartments, they would likely have interior parking, which work well. For retail, usually it works better if you have parking in front of the building or on the side of the building. If you have a strip mall, they just park in front of the door. So would you agree that the fact that there's no on-site parking is a detriment to the retail or commercial tenants?
I can follow that line of reasoning. Not being as versed in commercial, I can't say for certain, but it's a lot easier just to pull into a parking lot than find parking on the street.
Now your rent comparables, page 3, I believe. The commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in your model or whatever. Now I believe some of those are gross rents. Does the assessment department have some type of system to check whether they're gross or net rents?
Again, these are just from the model, what were generated in the area. As per my role at the department, I'm not involved in the looking over the income and expense mailers for commercial properties. My expertise is in apartments, so unfortunately I don't have an answer for that question.
Now I checked the BA on some of those properties, and on all of them except one, they're much lower than your net rent per square foot there. So the BA disagrees with these net rents. Do you know why there would be a disagreement there?
I do not know. I assume that's what your rebuttal is.
Part of it is the DAs, yeah.
Okay, so again, like, unfortunately, I don't have any detail in regards to the forms. They were just taken from the model in the area, and they were given to me as net rents. So that's unfortunately the best information I had at the time.
Not go to those files and check the rent rolls yourself to determine whether they were in fact gross or net rents.
No, the time didn't permit that, unfortunately.
It's all questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Any questions?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. So Mr. DuPont, please proceed with your presentation.
Can I get the report first? My rebuttal on this rent, which I sent by email.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Can I put through the rebuttal first, to discuss the rebuttal on the rent before presenting mine?
Hold on a minute.
Has the word rebuttal in red on the first page.
Yes, I have to find the email that it was sent in first. So it's not that I can't read.
No, okay, so they're on at night, 8, 9 o'clock, something like that.
Again, I don't receive emails directly from you. So just bear with me for a minute, please.
I have resent it, so it should be coming to you right away.
Okay, I have it in front of me now. Thank you.
I can present it now.
Yes.
Okay, so first page, we have a rent roll from the owner on 960 Portage. And this is from Ash Management, and they have a form where they take their rents and they remove the CAM and the taxes, and they come to a net rent calculation, which is the last column. And the assessor's comparable is the second tenant. I have excerpts on the next page, which are close-ups. Anyways, it's a second tenant, 724 is the net rent. And the whole project is 611 per square foot, I believe. So the next page, so I took snapshots of parts so that the second tenant, 102, has a 503 square feet. And that's what the assessor had. And then I have a close-up showing that the second tenant is 724. And my notes at the bottom, unit 102 at 503 square feet, 724 per square feet versus the assessor comp at 1894. So that's way off on that one. The gross rent could in fact be 1894. We'd have to go to the data, but nevertheless, it's a net rent that we're trying to get. Page 11, that's the BA on this one. So the BA it shows estimated base rent 5322 and 503 square feet. So the BA is 1058 versus the assessor's 1894. So that's just another area showing disagreement, but the actual rent roll is better evidence that it should actually be sub 24. Page 12, the assessor's comparable, 912 Portage, is the strip mall with superior front parking. That's the assessor comp at 1744 per square foot. Page 13, his other comparable, 156 Sherbrooke. The BA has 1081 per square foot net. The assessor is at 1858. Page 14. But the other comp on 156 Sherbrooke, he had two comps, one at some 4 square feet, one at 1400. That BA shows a net 1595 versus the assessor 2337. The next BA, Summit Sherbrooke, relatively close. BA 1634 and the assessor comp 1724. So there's a lot of doubt on the assessor's rents as to whether they are in fact gross rents or net rents. And we have one property with superior front parking. So that's my rebuttal.
All right, Mr. Baracus, would you like to speak to the rebuttal?
I don't have any questions on the
The
remote.
question. No. Mr. Marks,
None for me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre,
And I have no questions, thank you.
nor do I. Okay. Mr. DuPont?
I'll proceed with my main report. It shows up on my page numbers. It shows page 8. So page 9 is a summary. So we're asking, this is what the assessments are and what we are asking for. Built 2019, 6-story, 71 suites plus commercial. Page 10, we have a photo from the front. So you can see that there's no front parking. There's no parking at all on site except perhaps for indoor parking. Page 11 is the aerial map. You can see the building takes the whole lot. Page 12 is the map there again, Google map. So page 15, we take the owner had a rent roll. They copied it for the top of page 15. So they have the units there, and then the rent to Winnipeg Trails Association, $80 net per week. So it's like week by week. It's only $288 per square foot. I sent an email. Is that a temporary lease, or is that the tenant is going to sign the full later on, or the rent is going to go up? And he said no, it's temporary. So we're not going to rely on the $288 per square foot, or rely on the fact that it is in fact, or that it's partially occupied. It's in fact 100% vacant. So we have some comparable rents that we show there, according to Queen Elizabeth, Pembina, Osborne. We show the rents, square footage, year built. The first one is built 2008, the other one 1996, the other one 2007, 2002, 1999. The average is $14.55. So we'll plug that on page 16 at $14 per square foot. We have extra cap rate study for residential, and it's 5.25 for newer properties. So we're using the 5.25. So page 16. So the top part of the table shows the city's position. So then below that, all this position, and it shows where we vary in yellow. So on the apartment side, we vary on the cap rate only. So we accept their NOI. We show present vacancy 5.6. And then the office or retail. We use a different rent, $14 a square foot versus the assessor at $18.33. And we use a vacancy at 25% versus the assessor at 5.5%. So we should use a sub vacancy, and commercials could be much lower to rent than apartments, especially little things like this, especially this time we have with the COVID. So this could be a long ride before they rent up, so we should be allowing for the 25% vacancy. The assessor makes an adjustment, $105,000, which we accept. I know for other shopping centers, we've always accepted, or in certain cases when they did not, we always ask for TIs that have not yet been done, or they're shells at this point in time, so physically they are not 100% finished. And then we have to allow for vacancy on top of that, so that anybody buying would have to put in 105,000 to finish them off, and then they also have the vacancy risk, but not just the risk, the actual vacancy. So that would be my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Baracus, do you have any questions for Mr. Dupont?
Yeah, just in regards to the commercial vacancy, that seems to be a main area of contention. Given that the property was only recently constructed, and we don't know if there's going to be a long-term chronic vacancy, there's no evidence of that. Would it not be inappropriate to apply the long-term chronic 25% vacancy to the property without backup?
It is 100% vacant. We don't know how long it will take. We're just saying for retail, it could take a lot longer than residential. So with 100% vacancy, I believe a 25% vacancy is reasonable. I don't know what else to say about that. You've used 25% on the previous property on the residential, and now I'm using 25%. There, 25% was for residential at 50% occupied, and now I'm doing 25% on the commercial at 100% vacancy, and that is usually slower to rent out than residential. So I think 25% is very reasonable.
Okay. Is this a vacant, like for new commercial buildings? I'm not as familiar with commercial. Does Altus always apply 25% vacancy to units that have just been finished that haven't been rented yet, or the building's done but they're not rented yet in a new building? Is that something you guys always apply, or is it just this case?
Oh, I'm sure I can't answer always. I did not research, did not make any statistics as to what Altus has done in the past, but I'm sure Altus recognizes vacancy when there is 100% vacancy.
Okay.
I know I have in the past quite often.
Okay, fair enough. We disagree on cap, but the board knows about that already, so those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marks, do you have any questions?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Is there a need for summary on this?
No, not for me.
No. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes this matter, and that concludes this hearing this morning. We can now close the docket. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Do you want the extra copies of my cap rate study? Yes, take one for each file, and rebuttal, one for each file.
Brendan, is the did you turn it off?